Hey guys, I started this video and forgot to I'm on OBS and I forgot to transfer this video. Oh well. Anyway, beautiful night. Got this large full moon front and behind me. In the video, it's probably not going to show real well. It's always a glare, right? It's showing this glare. I don't know. Maybe I'll try taking a picture with it, but even in my phone, it's hard to get the right picture. I could probably take a picture with a nicer camera, but don't have. I used to have a really nice camera when I was a kid, but I lost it. Kids, stupid stuff. Anyway, I want to make this video because I ran into somebody really interesting yesterday. I was at my kids' track meet, and we got to talking, and I learned a lot about what happened to me when I was younger. He was a surgeon, the guy that I met, and he said that. Well, he told me that they wouldn't have worked on me the same way that how I got worked on when I was a kid. My appendix exploded when I was 14. It was causing me a lot of extreme pain, so I went to the hospital. Well, I went in once, and then they prescribed me an enema because I was either constipated or I had a bad appendix. So, 14-year-old kid giving himself an enema. My mom had to coax me into it, say, just do it. I'm like, all right. Nothing came out. And that night, I started eating a big plate of spaghetti, and all of a sudden, it felt like somebody took a long dagger and just jabbed it into my abdomen. I tell this story in my book, so any of you guys that bought the book, thanks for the support. It helps support the channel. Any kind of creative material that I create, obviously supports me and supports the channel. But um, so I couldn't speak. It was enough pain where it was more pain than I'd ever experienced ever in my life. And since then, I've never experienced that kind of pain. I doubled over and I couldn't speak. All I could do is just whisper, "Mom, hospital, hospital." So, mom drugged me into the hospital and they gave me meds, and I was scheduled to have my appendix removed the following morning, but it burst overnight. And so they rushed me into surgery, opened me up, tried to clean me out, probably tried to cut it out, and I ended up losing 60, 70 pounds over a week. You can't leave the hospital until your fever goes down, you have bowel movement. And it took, I felt like I was dying. And people have died from that. And I told him, I said, yeah, the hospital really never told us exactly what happened. And he's like, yeah, they were probably afraid of a lawsuit. Uh, but he said they don't do that anymore. If you have a ruptured appendix, they just stick a tube in you and fill you full of antibiotics and send you home. They don't even try to take your appendix out for a couple months after, because if your appendix blows, it looks like an orange mist in your abdomen, I guess. And you don't know what to cut out or what is or isn't good. So I thought that was really interesting how it's changed so much, that how the medical field has changed that much since then. And then he started telling me a really interesting story, and then it moves into belief and the power of the heart. I didn't even tell him the name of my book. It was that I had written a book, called "There Is Only One Heart." And he started talking about the guy who, because he was a surgeon, and we were just, his boy was running the same my boy was running, and we were similar age. I think he was a little younger than I am. Um, Very talkative, very smart guy. I could tell, he was a surgeon. He does all the local uh, hernias, and he wanted to do the hernias. He didn't want to do, there was another thing that he just did. Oh, he didn't want to do breast cancer. And so the other surgeon was like, okay, I'll do breast cancer, because evidently breast cancer is a fairly common surgery locally. So he didn't want to do breast cancer. He'd rather do hernias. Um, so that's what he did. But he was telling me about this book that he read called The King of Hearts. And it's a true story based on the guy that invented open heart surgery. Because, in the past, you could not operate on somebody on their heart, right? The one thing that you can't mess with is the heart. You can operate, you can cut just about anything else off. You can be brain dead, but the body will stay alive as long as your heart keeps beating. But You can't, we could never get into the heart to, let's say, fix a heart valve. You could not do that. And he told me, I won't go into the whole story about the book. I think it's a 250-page book, but everything that, they started experimenting with animals and artificially overinflating their hearts to where they'd go into heart failure and try different methods to work on their hearts, and they'd invariably die. And he realized, he actually gave this big speech or this big presentation on how you can artificially create a closed loop circuit in somebody to provide an external pump so that you could work on someone's heart, um, so that once you got it going again, you just hook everything back up and it worked fine. And the idea came to him when, I can't remember the medical term, but it's how your femoral artery, where it can breach and start flowing blood into the vein that moves back in the opposite direction, and actually kind of creates a closed circuit, and actually can overinflate your heart because it's cutting off portions of the body, and so your heart becomes slightly imbalanced and swells up. And that idea is like, oh wait, yeah, we can create an external circuit. So you just, take main arteries off the heart, plug it into somebody else's return circuit, and then just use an external pump. And he said the first external pumps that wasn't a person. His first idea was to use a girl's mom, because there was a girl that actually died, that ended up, the origin of how she died, I guess, was from a blood clot in her leg. That actually is what killed her, even though he fixed her heart. But he was going to use her mom's heart as a pump to keep pumping the blood through her system while he worked on her heart. And I don't think they, I can't remember exactly what happened, but she ended up dying anyway. Um, but fascinating story about how, the one place you can't get into is the Holy of Holies, right? You can't break into the heart space. You can't force your way in. The only way to do it is to surrender, right? So if you surrender yourself to someone else, think about that. You're surrendering yourself to an external heart, you can stay alive. I thought that was a very interesting concept. And so I asked the question, right? Because, this is a mystical channel, right? This is what is the state of reality? And belief determines our state of reality, right? What we believe is possible, our understanding of how this place works, how everything comes from the heart, goes back to the heart, and the sum total is zero. So when you look at everything, it's like, is it real or is it not real? Am I creating this? Am I not creating this? Am I seeing something that thinks it's real, and so I think it's real? So we're creating this mutually shared delusion, right? I mean, that's kind of, when you really think about it, uh, what it is, right? Anyway, um, what the um, power of belief, and what he thought about, Joe Dispenza, and a lot of these guys, um, you know, instantaneously healing people of specific things. I talked to him about Braden's recent video about how, three women stood over somebody and basically married the thought and emotion, or the structure and the emotional body, to declare something as healed, and then it was instantly healed. And he's like, well, I've never, because I know that there is a large history of people being instantaneously healed by cancers, things like that. And he's a surgeon, so he would see things like that in Tri-Cities. And he's like, well, although, I've never personally seen something like that happen, I'm not going to just say that it isn't happen, right? Because that's one of the, he's smart enough to know that the last thing that you could say is that something is impossible. And the power of belief is very real. And then he shared with me an interesting story um, about belief. And it actually had something to do with my mom, not realizing it. She had a gastrointestinal bypass surgery by a famous doctor here in this area. I think his name was Dr. Heap. And Heap used to do all the intestinal bypass surgeries in that area. And Heap he was an egomaniac, and he actually hurt a lot of people because he would take out too much of their large intestine, and their absorption rate of nutrients would go down to the point where they couldn't absorb anything, and that they'd start dying. And actually, that this happened to a patient, and this surgeon just so happens to be an LDS guy, a Mormon guy. I didn't know that until he shared this story with me, and he had somebody show up that had been worked on by HEAP, and they had so much of their large intestine gone that there's nothing he could have done. So, or I mean, he had an idea of how to fix it and install a specific length of intestine so that she could start absorbing something again. And then he had the people shared with him a story. It's like they were so thankful for him, who actually agreed to work on their mother, because this was a woman. Um, and they prayed, and they were LDS people as well, and made a blessing, said, please send us somebody who can heal our mother and help her. And isn't that, and what's interesting to me is the universe send them somebody within their own church, somebody that they would trust, who knew what to do according to his, at least his level of understanding, to help their mother, right? Somebody that had gone through a surgery that had been botched. It was a botched surgery. Ask and you shall receive. That's some of the most powerful things, right? And I think that the if you surrender, and this is the power of the heart, right? Um, that anything is possible. All you have to do is ask, and then anything that you really need, right? And usually the only thing that we really need is our own peace of mind and love from the people around us, and to give our love to each other in equal portion, so our hearts are healed, right? Because you don't want an imbalanced heart. You don't want to feel like you're giving and giving and giving all the time and you're never getting anything back. And at the same time, you don't want to be pulling everybody else towards you and then just not ignoring everybody. So, um, just a very powerful conversation I had with somebody that I was chance meeting. Is it a chance? Was it a chance? I don't know. Anyway, love you guys, and appreciate you guys so much. Thanks for watching my YouTube channel. Like, share, and subscribe. I never know what I'm going to talk about. Never know where I'm going to be at, right? It was a beautiful day today. It's been a really nice week. Hope you guys are doing well. Love you, and I'll catch you on the next one.